Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Get Ready for Microsoft 365 Copilot session. My name is Alex. I am based in the Netherlands. Oh, actually, I can show you a little bit about that. Well, this is me. Good morning. I am based in the Netherlands. Well, you cannot tell by my desk here, but this is where I'm presenting this Microsoft 365 Copilot session from. This session is hosted by Glasspaper. So in the last few days, you have obviously been spammed with announcements on today's webinar. If you like this webinar very much, then today at 1 o'clock you can join again. We will be hosting the exact same webinar. So that is what at least we have planned. So that is where I am located from. Oh, and I have like a camera zooming. Oh, this is nice. I'm a little bit blurry like this, but hey, that will solve itself at a later stage. So my name is Alex. If you have not seen me before, I actually regularly I teach classes at Glasspaper. Also, you may have seen me at NIC. I do present at NIC conference every year, pretty much. Actually, up till now, I have been working presenting at NIC every single year. And my background is that my job is that I'm a storyteller. And I do this for many customers that I have, Microsoft being one of those customers. And in Norway, I exclusively work for Glasspaper. Today's webinar is about Microsoft 365 Copilot and how to get ready for it. This means that we will be going through some of the basics. So first of all, we will be going through what is Copilot and why does it matter. Also, we will be going through the architecture of Microsoft 365 Copilot. I do realize that there is more than one Copilot. But we will be focusing on the Copilot that is part of Microsoft 365. And in the meantime, I'm sort of worried because my camera is still a bit blurry, and sometimes when I show my face a little bit closer, here I am, and then go back, it sort of zooms better. But for some reason, here it is. No, maybe later. My face is not the most important part of this webinar. So no, we will be focusing on Microsoft 365, and what we will be going through is the architecture. We'll also be looking into how to make sure that your tenant is ready for Copilot. Now, during today's session, we do have a lot of participants. In the two sessions today, we will expect a total of more than 500 attendees. So you can imagine that it's quite difficult for me to pay attention to each and every one of you, which I typically would if I would be teaching like a smaller classroom-based class. However, I am going to try and see if I am able to answer questions that you may have. So what you could do is in the webinar solution by Zoom, we are using Zoom for this webinar. There is a Q&A section there. In the Q&A section, you will be able to answer your questions. Now, there might be a lot of questions coming in. I try to monitor and try to answer most of them. However, if your question is not being answered during the session, then I suggest that you try and reach me on LinkedIn, because that's also what I use to communicate with people that watch that check out my sessions. I'll show you the details in a little bit on how to reach me on LinkedIn. Like my name is Alex de Jong. De Jong is the most common last name in the Netherlands. And Alex is also quite a common name. So if you try to search on LinkedIn for Alex de Jong, you will probably not find me. You could try to search for Alex Young and then the word Microsoft. That may help. Also, I will show you a couple of other things during this session that would make it easier for you to reach out. So, with that being said, if you have any questions, please use the Q&A section. There is also a chat functionality in the webinar solution by Zoom. I do have a window open that shows the chat, but to be honest, I don't think I will be able to participate in there because it's just there's just too many people here. At this point, I can see that at this point we have almost 200 people in the session. And we are expecting about 250 in total. So, well, that is just to make sure that we have that we know how this works. Furthermore than that, if you are interested in after today dive deeper into Microsoft 365 Copilot or maybe other Copilots, then well, later today I'm going to show you a little bit of options we have at Glasspaper if you need to learn more, let's say. So that is actually what we are going to focus on. Just before we move into the actual Microsoft 365 Copilot thing, I am sort of expecting anyone in this session to be to be aware of what in the end the purpose of Copilot is. If not, I'm going to do a little bit of a short overview here. But what I see when I talk about Copilot is that most of the people in the sessions that I do about this topic, they know at least a little bit of ChatGPT. Now, if you have been living underneath a rock, then well, this is then you may have not heard of ChatGPT, but this is what it is. And if you would be thinking about what makes ChatGPT what makes ChatGPT is that it allows people to interact in a natural language with a system that is very advanced in when it comes to, well, gathering information and more so linking information to each other. So later in this session, we will be going through how ChatGPT works. We'll be going through the architecture a little bit. One of the major components in Microsoft 365 Copilot is the indexing component, the semantic index. The semantic index has the sole purpose of, well, making sure that from the perspective of the user, we can start linking useful information to each other. And that sort of makes the responses that we get by Microsoft 365 Copilot, or in this example, ChatGPT, it will sort of make the response like it is an intelligent system behind this. However, artificial intelligence is as intelligent as we allow it to be. And for example, and if we think about solutions like ChatGPT or Microsoft 365 Copilot, then we know that that is a text in, text out kind of solution. And well, we can only the intelligence is only based on what we teach the system. So that is, and well, one of the nicer things, I always like to start with a little demo on AI. Well, first of all, the ChatGPT part, right, is many people use this a lot. So what we could do is, well, if you know me, and probably maybe some of you have already seen me present. If you know me, you know that I am a Bing user. Now, if you're not sure what Bing is, if you don't really know what that is, it's like Google, but better. At least, yeah, I think so. Also, Bing is super fast. probably because I'm the only user there, but still, it's super fast. But if I need to, for example, if I want to have Bing explained to me, I can go and say, "Hey, explain Bing to me," and then you will get a little bit of an explanation. And it feels like we are talking to, well, at least it feels like there is some intelligent system behind this. But in real life, there's just a large index of information behind this, and we are grabbing the information. And one of the cooler parts of ChatGPT is that there is an LLM component, a large language model, behind this that is making sure that the data is presented to me in a more intelligent way, let's say. So it feels like lines and sentences have been built up by people. One of the coolest parts is that one of the coolest parts is that ChatGPT, and that is how we can, for example, link information, one piece of information to another. I can also go and say, hey, now I can go and now explain this, like Donald Trump would. So if Donald Trump would have to explain Bing to me, then the answer is that for some reason, the system knows how Donald Trump typically talks, right? So this would be the Donald Trump kind of way of explaining Bing to me. But we can also go and say, well, if you have seen me present, you will also know that I'm not only a Bing lover. I also like The Office a lot. You know that The Office, the company that the paper company Dunder Mifflin. I like the American version. I like the American version of The Office, so I can go and say, hey, explain Bing to me, like, for example, Michael Scott, which is one of the main characters, and he goes and it starts to show me how Michael Scott would be explaining Bing to me, and this is quite cool. This is really, really useful because we are now, what it pretty much shows is that it does not only it does not only know what Bing is. Well, that is something we could Bing, let's say, or we could Google, but we also now know what kind of language is being used by someone else, and we are now bringing that together, and that is one of the amazing things that is driving ChatGPT in this example. Now, why is ChatGPT an important example for us today in this session? Is that the 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 solution like ChatGPT is being used in Microsoft 365 Copilot. There's a large language model and it communicates with a data set. And well, if we use that solution against our Office data, we can pretty much go in and start to create relations between pieces of information between the different data sets that we have inside, for example, Microsoft 365 in the Office component, or also Microsoft is going to support data locations other than Office to inject information and index information into Microsoft 365 Copilot. So with this, this is one of the examples. Now, if you do not have access to ChatGPT, then you might want to just go and open up Bing, because in Bing we also have a chat function. And here we have sort of a ChatGPT, the Bing way. However, if you would ask the same kind of questions here in, let's say the Microsoft Bing Copilot version, we could go and say, hey, explain Bing to me like Michael Scott. What we then will see is that now we will see now we will see that we also would get a sort of an answer, but here we see that it's this is not really the way that Michael Scott it would be, right? So it's basically asked like explain Bing to me for explain Bing to me like Michael Scott, but that's sort of ignored here. Or if I would go and say, hey, explain Bing to me like Donald Trump, then we'll notice that also here Microsoft might even go in and say, well, again, it's sort of being ignored again. And the reason for that is that if Microsoft implements a solution like ChatGPT, Microsoft is always thinking about what are we going to show to our customers or our users. And well, in that case, what we'll see is that Microsoft is implementing or is performing something which is called responsible AI. Microsoft is very, very aware of the power of AI. And so if you would be using Microsoft's version of the GPT engine, then what we'll see is that Microsoft sort of has limited it to, well, make sure that it's not going to do weird things. And we have seen Microsoft's GPT, automations or Microsoft bot engines become very weird. You may have heard the news about this bot that became a Nazi in 2 days because, well, people were asking questions. And for some reason, at one point, that bot was supporting Hitler. So Microsoft had to take it down because, well, that was not exactly what it was supposed to do there. So what we'll see is that even though the company called OpenAI is which is behind ChatGPT is half owned by Microsoft, still the solution ChatGPT is not controlled by Microsoft, which means that if I would use ChatGPT, my solution allows things like, well, impersonating someone, like tell me something like you would be Donald Trump. In let's say this version of a GPT engine, which is monitored or managed by Microsoft, then we'll see that the answers are going to be more generic, let's say. So I'm not allowed to do these weird kind of things like show me something like. It's going to replace my search query to something else, and based on that query, it will then go and answer the question the best way it can do that. Still, it's limited in what it's allowed to do. So yeah, there is differences here. Now, obviously, Microsoft 365 Copilot is going to be using the Microsoft controlled version. So you will notice that will always be some kind of a filter there that, well, makes sure that everything is going to be, let's say, more polite. Let's say be more woke, if you wish. Be more friendly for everything. I'm not sure if I don't think it's a bad thing that Microsoft is keeping control on that part. Because, well, AI is very powerful and we need to be very careful in how we implement this. And Microsoft is actually one of the major organizations that is fighting for implementation of AI regulations. In Europe, I think somewhere this week or last week, I've seen some news article that said that there will be some regulations on how AI could be implemented, just to make sure that it's not getting too powerful, because it could be in potentially a dangerous solution as well. So ChatGPT is one. Another example of AI that I always like to show is something that Microsoft released a couple of well, a couple of weeks ago. And if you want, you can actually go there now and create your own account. I think it's now open for everybody. Designer.microsoft.com, which is a solution that is more about, let's say, images. And one of the nicer solutions here is something called the image creator. If you have been on LinkedIn lately, then you will see lots of people. They created some pictures based on that image creator that they then post on LinkedIn for fun, I think. The image creator is, however, it's one hand, it is super, super cool. On the other hand, it also shows that, well, what is being generated by AI, same thing, by the way, counts for example, a GPT engine like Copilot or ChatGPT. It's not always that the results that you get are true, or that the results that you get will not always make sense. And that is something that, that is something that the users of these solutions need to be, let's say, very, very aware about. So let me just go and give you an example on, for example, what this designer app can do. So let's say I want to have the designer app create a cartoon about me. So I can go and say, hey, I want a cartoon. I want I am 48 years old. So let's say a 48 years old man with let's say, I'm kind of grayish black hair. Let's say black gray hair. Let's say short hair, right? Short hair. Presenting presenting Microsoft 365 Copilot on a MacBook Pro. Yeah, that is something that we could ask the designer tool, and then what it will do, it will take this information, it will sort of try to understand the information. It will then go and pick out the information that makes sense, like what is a MacBook Pro, what is a 48-year-old man look like, what does so it will take that information, and then it will go to it will go in its database. It will try to see if we know, if we have pictures or examples of what we are looking for. And then it will AI the stuff. So it will sort of create a picture based on, or in this case, a cartoon based on what we have seen so far. So here we are. So maybe we want to go and maybe I like a 3D cartoon better. And then, we will get this a little bit different. Look at that. How cool. This is not too bad, is it? It's actually kind of a cool picture. So I am even have a sweater with the Windows logo. What Microsoft does do, however, sometimes they're going to do these kind of small things like, hey, but Microsoft, we know that Microsoft is a registered trademark. So let's mess it up a little bit. I was about to say another word, by the way. Let's mess it up a little bit in order to make it, sort of legal. So this is one way, but now let's add something weird into it. I could say drinking a cup of coffee, right? That's something we can do. Let's see if we can also add that part into our query here. And now let's see if the AI engine is doing what I was expecting it to do. You can actually see it's it's pretty cool. But yeah, Microsoft 365, they did something with that. I do get the feeling that this solution doesn't really know what Copilot means. So yeah, I'm not really sure what that does. Now in this case, actually, it looks pretty well. But maybe I want to go presenting a Copilot on let's take another computer. Let's try something like a like a Microsoft using a Microsoft laptop. Yeah, let's take this as well. Let's see if we can make changes here as well. Now, the reason that the reason that I'm trying this exact query here, or at least a query like this, it seems to be quite all right now, because at this point it will sort of recognize that it's the person that has to be the one drinking the coffee. But in many cases, if you would be using queries like these, it could go and say, it could go and say, hey, maybe it's the laptop that is drinking the coffee, because the way that you ask your question heavily influences the outcome that we will get. So in this case, I'm very happy that the laptop will still, it's not the laptop drinking the coffee, but it's the person drinking the coffee. To be honest, last week I tried these kind of things, and then I got like an extra hand coming out of a laptop that would then, well, drink the coffee here, right? So that would be sort of a weird result. So with this, we have two examples of how AI can be well, useful in an organization, at least for users in this case. But now let's see what that means if we would be monitoring, or if we would be implementing AI kind of solutions in a Microsoft 365 environment in Office. For that, we want to be, well, first of all, what I would like to do is I would like to show you what the architecture of the solution is. Now, if you look at Microsoft 365, this is, by the way, my whiteboarding tool. I do have a couple of PowerPoint slides. I am going to show you some of the PowerPoint slides, but well, not too many, because, well, PowerPoint is boring, right? So I try to keep it down on the PowerPoints. But let's look at what the architecture of the architecture of Microsoft 365 Copilot is. And to understand the architecture, one of the things that we need to understand is where do we find, let's say, data, organizational data. So if we would be talking about organizational data, we want to be aware of, well, the organizational data locations that we can have. Now, if you think about those organizational data locations, one of the things that you might be interested in is the ones that Microsoft comes up with, Microsoft 365. For example, there is quite a couple of components here that make sense. Exchange Online, for example. Oh, by the way, I am using a lot of acronyms. If you are worried about those acronyms, what you could do is visit this website, moab.ms. It's my own website, and here I do. This is where I share information with my students and or people that see my presentations. And if you go into in the top menu here and click learning here, if you click the learning page, then here the first link is the link of acronyms. So here we have this is the acronyms that I typically use. So if there's something unclear on my whiteboards, then, well, that's where it is. So, well, one of the organizational data locations for Office is Exchange Online. And this is where users have mailboxes stored. So here we can see that users can store mailboxes. And if you think about data that we can find in these mailboxes, is that we can, for example, see, well, email is here, your calendar is here, Your contacts are here. Also, a part of your mailbox is your task list. Huh? So your tasks are here as well. And what you will also see in a user's mailbox is some of the one-on-one chats that you do in Microsoft Teams. Your one-on-one chat is stored for the user inside the user's mailbox. Another location where Microsoft 365 can store organizational data is in SharePoint Online and OneDrive for Business. Now, SharePoint Online and OneDrive for Business are the exact same solutions. However, it's if we think about SharePoint Online, we pretty much we always think about shared data or shared documents, we could say, where OneDrive for Business is more the solution for your personal data. So that is your personal data is also in the same solution. However, it's named OneDrive for Business. And if we think about the data that we store in SharePoint Online and or OneDrive for Business, is that we will then see that there is a lot of data there. For example, documents could be stored in SharePoint libraries or in the personal in your OneDrive folders, but also group chats are in SharePoint as well. And then what you'll notice is that also a lot of solutions that we know in Office 365 are sort of built on top of SharePoint. For example, the solution called Microsoft Stream, which is video-based data, or forms kind of solutions, or bookings kind of solutions. And well, there is actually a lot of those, a lot of data stored in SharePoint and OneDrive. Then obviously we know that Microsoft Teams is here. Now, interesting information about Teams is that Teams itself, it does have a database and it does store something, but it doesn't really store actual, data that we can use to store information. It's more about the presence of people. Huh? Are we available for chat? Are we available for video conferencing? Are we available for audio conferencing? Those kind of things. This kind of data is stored into Teams as well. Then we have information stored in Entra ID as well. Entra ID, which is the new name of Azure Active Directory, this stores information about people. Right? This is user information, group information is here as well. So yeah, we have organizational data about people, and if we think about organizational data about devices, you can also use something called Microsoft Intune, and Intune is also here to store data about the devices. And these are just the Microsoft 365 based locations. Microsoft is going to allow APIs to also have information from third-party locations to become part of what Microsoft 365 Copilot is going to offer us in the results part. One of the important parts is that all the data here, all the data here is data that we can access via something called the Microsoft Graph. The Microsoft Graph is a solution that is responsible for allowing access to all these different locations, but it will always take into account, and that is one of the major purposes of the Microsoft Graph. One of the major components of the graph is that it will provide security. It will provide security, and it will also provide compliance components for the data. So, for example, if you have ever wondered why, if you search for files in Teams, you will only see the results in files that you are allowed to access based on your group membership, maybe, then that is the role of Microsoft Graph. Microsoft Graph's role in this part is that it will make sure that users cannot accidentally or on purpose access data that they are not supposed to access. So that is quite an important component in the entire solution. The graph is making sure that there is the graph is making sure that we are implementing security in the right way. Now, for us, so for if we want to be able to work with Copilot, with in this case Microsoft 365 Copilot, all the data that is involved here is all the data involved needs to be indexed, and in one of the components that is that is basically communicating with that graph is a solution which is called the semantic index for Copilot. This is the Copilot. That is the official name of the solution. And the semantic index from Copilot has a very specific role, and that is to go and take for each and every user, for each security related levels of access, we are going to create an index that we can then search through, basically. So the semantic index is communicating with that graph in order to make sure that we have that we get the information for any given user on what is going on for that user when it comes to the documents or the emails or the chat messages that this user has access to. So what we could say is that for every user that is making use of Copilot, the data shown as the result of the semantic index is going to be different, because for me, I may not have access to a certain team. My coworker may have access to that team, and therefore we might see different results if we are searching for a specific piece of information because of the levels of access that we have. But that is actually not the only thing. So if we look at the role of the semantic index in Copilot, then what we'll notice is that it is responsible for it will map your data, basically. It will tell, hey, and that data is based on security. Security is being taken into account. The level of access are being taken into account. What data do I have access to in the first place? But one of the coolest parts is that the semantic index will not only map my data, but it will only map the relationships. And if we think about mapping relationships, then we can think about mapping relationships between, for example, documents based on content. So, for example, if you have a certain project that you are working on, and there's a certain name of the project, and we can see in several different files, we can see that name of a certain project, then in that case, the documents are going to be related to each other. That is one of the things that we could go and think about relationships. So based just on relationship based on, for example, content. However, we can also map relationships based on metadata. And this is actually quite interesting because if we have like 100 documents about a certain project, then we could say that it might be obvious that you want to see the latest information first. So if I'm searching for a project, I always want to be working on the latest version of the information. So metadata means, hey, when was this document last modified? And then it makes sense to, well, if we query stuff, that we would be working with the latest information first. That would be a relationship not only on content of documents or emails or chats, but also on the metadata. When did this happen? And then it's actually quite interesting because it will also map relationships on, for example, groups, and it will map relationships based on people or persons, maybe personal personal relationships. So, for example, let's say you are in a certain team. You're in the sales department and you are searching for information about a certain project. Then what we can do is, and that is something that the semantic index can do, the semantic index can then go and say, hey, we see that this salesperson is member of the sales group. Now, on the same project, we have two other people that have been working on that project. And one of those people is also a salesperson, but the other one may be a construction worker, I don't know. Then it makes sense that the information being changed or being used by that other salesperson is more relevant to this person also being in sales. So therefore, we are going to sort of prioritize the results for that. We are going to prioritize the results based on group membership or based on information we can get from Enter ID based on, for example, somebody's profession or the role that someone may have inside the the relationships that we have based on content, metadata groups, and personal information may be changing the way that the results are being presented to us. So what you can imagine is that this semantic index for Microsoft 365 Copilot is one of the massive enablers for the solution. So that is something that we really, really, really want to make sure that is working all right. Well, the good thing for us is that we don't really need to, configure it. And that might be a little bit weird, but the semantic index is just there. And the semantic index is being used or is being managed by Microsoft. It is just, it's just happening for us based on the on the solution that we are running here. So that is, if we look at so basically what I wanted to say is that semantic index is not something that we can really configure. There is one thing that we can sort of allow to be part of the semantic index or not, and that is we have an option to allow or disallow data from the internet to be part of it. So if I am querying Copilot for things, if I want Copilot to find something for me, then we have an option to allow or disallow information from the internet to be part of the results. But in that part, that internet part is not per se Microsoft 365 Copilot. That is going to use something called, officially it's called Microsoft Copilot. Now it's Copilot. Microsoft Copilot is the new name of what was used to be named Bing Chat Enterprise. So this last thingy here, was formerly known as Bing Chat Enterprise. The idea was Microsoft used to name this Bing Chat Enterprise. And if I would, for example, go to Bing here, then this solution here, the chat functionality in Bing, is now, it used to be named Bing Chat. Now, in Bing, you have an option to also include results for your enterprise environment. So, for example, if I'm searching for, let's say, Azure Virtual Desktop, which is, something I've been working on the last few days, then here I can just, I can search the internet for Azure Virtual Desktop. That makes sense, obviously. But I can also select my work section here. And now I will be getting results about Azure Virtual Desktop. But now we are going to get data from within my own organization. So I've been working on a couple of presentations on Azure Virtual Desktop lately. And those files that I used for this are also the result of Bing. Now, if I can then, and so what we can do if we use the chat functionality here, here it's actually still called Bing Chat Enterprise. Okay, good, because Microsoft is indeed going to make the name change to Microsoft Copilot. Therefore, that's what it's. It's going to be another name change, but here we get some information. But we can also go and use this tool to, also query our on-prem, or let's say on our Office-related data. Let's say, right? That's Bing Chat Enterprise. Actually, it's going to be renamed soon. So the semantic index, using the security parts of the Microsoft Graph that has information and access to all the data that we are discussing here. That has a very important, that can be a very important thing. Now, so the question that I can see coming in is, if we are an organization and we have employees and students in the same tenant, could that be a security problem? And the answer is, it could be a problem if you have not, if you're not managing your security right. Later in this session, I will go through a couple of short steps that you can do to go and say, how can I prepare my organization, my tenant, for Copilot? And one of the major components is to make sure that you set up the security right, because Copilot will just use the existing controls for security. So if you are pretty sure that your students at this point do not have access to, let's say, employee data, then you will also not have to worry about Copilot allowing those users to access that employee data, because Copilot is limited to what the security allows the user to see in the first place. So if you think about the results of what the semantic index is for a user, then, the results are always personalized. Personalized. So we have personalized results because of that. That's the existing security part that we are going to take into account here. Now, from the end user's perspective, right? If we check out the the end user's perspective, then well, the user needs to have access to Copilot, right? So the user is going to make use of well, typically. Whoa, let me see if I can get this fixed. So users need to have access to Copilot. Typically, access to Copilot is you can get that different from different solutions in Office. For example, your Office client applications will give us access to Copilot. You could be thinking about Outlook, Teams. We have other things to work together. You may have heard of something called Microsoft Loop. Microsoft Loop is fairly new, and it's a way for users in an organizations to work together even more. And so you can start seeing what your coworkers are working with. So it's pretty much the name Loop comes from, hey, keep me in the loop, right? That's where the word loop comes from. Also, we see applications like Word or Excel or Power. Do have a couple of client applications where we can see the results, or where we can see Copilot happening. Just to give you an idea of what that would look like, I actually one of the crappy things about this about Copilot so far is, and that it's going to change, but so far Copilot is only going to be available. it's it's only going to be available for organizations at this point, for organizations that have at least 300 licensed users in their organization. And that means, for now, that would mean at least 300 Microsoft 365 E3 or E5 licenses. If you are working for a smaller organization, you will have to be patient. It will get there in the end. However, Microsoft has started to release, to generally make available Copilot for the larger organizations. So Microsoft is expecting to also allow smaller organizations access to Copilot in the first quarter of next year. But, well, if you have been working with Microsoft a lot, then you know that when they say the first quarter, they actually mean the third quarter. But hey, that's I I don't really know when we are getting to go, when we are going to get that the actual access. Hopefully anytime soon. So for now, I will have to do with this. And this, what I'm going to show you here is what Copilot would look like, or what it looks like in an environment here. So so we have a couple of scenarios. In this example, I'm going to show you what Copilot would look like in Outlook and Teams, just to give an example. I do know that it is super crappy that this is not a live demo. Ooh, it's not a live demo. That's too bad. However, setting it up for for my own tenant here, and I'm a very, very small tenant. Yeah, I'm not eligible yet for Copilot. At this time, I can see a question coming in from a school user or school admin. It will also be available for A3 and A5 licenses. You will also be able to use some Copilot features in F3 at one point. Even Business Premium is going to be supported at a later stage. But yeah, for now, I know it's kind of crappy, but for now we do have to be a little bit patient. Here we see this is when we look at this Outlook window here. This Outlook window shows the new version of Outlook, by the way. If you want to be able to use Copilot in Outlook, you must use the new Outlook, which is something which is a switch button you can open up. You can switch in your Outlook client. The new Outlook has Copilot. And here, for example, one of the things that Copilot can do is it can summarize email threads by that you may have. For here, for example, we have a so here we have an action called summarize by Copilot, and then what it will do is it will read the entire thread of email, and then it will summarize the data. And sort of to one of the major things that I think is important for users using Copilot is that you may not just want to blindly trust everything AI is going to give you. Like I mentioned, ChatGPT sometimes is also wrong based on the data it knows, based on the way that you ask your question. It may be interpreting your language in a different way than as an actual human being would. So Microsoft, in order to make sure that Microsoft therefore says, hey, it's very important that a user in Copilot is able to sort of check why the answers that we see are being given. And here, for example, if we check out the summary of the email thread, then we can see some information. But you also have the little the little citation options, and if we click those, we can actually see that it will then open up that specific step that this is all based upon, right? So that is something that you can do. You can also go back by this, and then that would be one of the capabilities that that Copilot has. Another capability in Copilot is that it can create a text for you, right? You can ask Copilot to go and say, hey, send an email message. Send an email message that shows that tells give me an update on a certain project, and it will then write that code for you. This is one example. Another example is, for example, in Microsoft Teams. Now, this is a fake Teams meeting. What actually is true is that these people are even fake people. They don't exist. These are AI generated faces, which I think is pretty cool. Sorry. So one of the things that we can do in Teams, now another example, is open up Copilot for Teams. It will then open up a screen on the site. And for example, if I'm joining a meeting in Teams, what is kind of cool is that we have the option to recap the meeting as far as it goes. And it will then, what it will do, it will monitor whatever has been discussed in that meeting. And it will then tell us what has been discussed so far, right? It will just go and summarize that stuff for you. Very often when I talk about Microsoft 365 Copilot, one of the questions is, in order to make this work, do we need to record the meeting in Teams? And for now, the answer is yes. So you can see in this example, also here in the left top, on purpose in this demo, they said, hey, make sure that the meeting is recorded, because then everything that is being said is also being captioned. So everything is being said is being written down, and that's why Copilot can make use of this, because Copilot is a GPT solution that is language, text in, text out for most of the part. So yes, that's something that we need to address in that point. So that is something that we can do. We can also ask questions about the meeting. So in this case, how does the group feel about the inventory status? This is just an example, and then it will go through the different responses. One of the nicer things, if we look at what AI can do, we can also monitor people's emotions, let's say. So that's actually quite interesting, right? So we can see, hey, what is the what is the emotion of a solution? That it's not that we can tell whether or not a person is sad or happy or anything, but the language used could be identified as friendly or angry or well, harassment kind of solution things. So that is something that you could go and check out. So one of the other examples here, so we can see a result of the question of the query that we do. And then if we move forward, you can also go in and say, hey, there's some sort of AI generated follow-up questions. And you can just go and select those to easily fast forward the idea that the AI generated follow-up questions are being created based on the content that we see. So Copilot is able to summarize key discussion points. It can even include the who said what, and were they aligned with a certain decision, or did they disagree about this? It can all happen in in real time. Question coming in from about the language. Other languages, I think they might already be supported, but if they're not, they're going to be supported soon because for Microsoft, well, their language modules are very rich. And for Microsoft, in theory, that would be like a very, very small step to implement lots of languages. So if it's not there yet, I'm expecting more languages to be supported anytime soon. However, Microsoft well needs to be very certain that those languages are working well. Let's say that's an important thing. So I'm not really sure if it's not there yet when exactly, but it might be anytime soon. So that is going to be used. So let me just quickly move forward with this. So here we have another option is that we can also use a solution called Microsoft Loop. This, if you haven't seen it yet, loop.microsoft.com. Microsoft Loop also has a Copilot, and the idea behind Copilot is that we can start working together. It's sort of like something like getting even more collaboration than Microsoft Teams will get you. So, for example, what we can do is we can start by implementing Copilot generated components. So maybe we want to create some kind of a document or a post, or we want to create some kind of a project here. Here we are going to propose an outline for an upcoming meeting to discuss a product launch plan. If that is what we want, we can then well, what it will do then, it will go and create content for you that you can then start sharing with your organization. So that is something we can do. Maybe we can go into that list and say, hey, turn that list into a paragraph and then run this, and it will then create a piece of text for you that is more easily to read. Yeah, these kinds of steps, right? These kinds of steps are very useful here. You can even also copy text from somewhere else and then paste it, for example, in there. So maybe we added in the near future, in the near future action. Now that it would also be a way to get, for example, Microsoft Copilot to do stuff for you. Now, in this little click-through demo, we've talked about Outlook and Teams and Microsoft Loop. If you want to show something to your colleagues about this, these demos the demo that I just showed you is you can actually access the demo yourself. If you would go if you have access to a location called demos.microsoft.com, maybe the best way to go there is by going to my MoApp website again, moap.ms. Check demos here. And yeah, let me see if I have one. Oh, maybe okay. Goody. So yes, what I will do, I haven't put it in there yet. I will put links to these kinds of click-through demos for you, right? So it's not here yet, but I'll do it. I'll do it later, and I will share it here on this website. So actually, you can see a question by Anna. Can we share these links? Yes, I will. I will share the links in my website. Just one thing to remember is moap.ms. The MoApp is short for the mother of all portals. It's my own website. And by the way, if you have any questions outside of this webinar, on the MoApp website, here on the right-hand side, there is a link to my LinkedIn profile. Please connect if you have any queries. And super important, that is part of the deal. If you are in this webinar, you should also subscribe to my YouTube channel. That is non-optional. It's something that you have to do, obviously. Super important to do so because my friend Andy yesterday reached 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is super cool. And I only have 3,500. So yeah, you need to subscribe to the channel, right? Do that and click like buttons. I'm gonna go and show you I got a question in from that says, "Hey, do we have some admin settings we can do?" I'll show you what we have. I'll show you a little bit. I'll show you a little bit later. So we do have the client applications that we use to connect to these client applications are useful for us to sort of reach Copilot. Now, one of the things that you may want to be that you may be interested in is that this user might not be super familiar with what kind of questions to ask in Copilot, right? And it makes sense because there's all kinds of commands you can now start to enter, and typically the idea is that you want to do this in you want to use Copilot in something called a natural language. So yes, that makes sense. However, in some cases, you don't really know how much potential Copilot has. So to help the user out, to get some guidance in what the users can ask from Copilot, there is something called the Copilot Labs. Now, Copilot Labs. Let me just let me just show you. If I go to Copilot Labs, then I think here Copilot. This is GitHub. This is not what I wanted. Copilot Lab with a screensaver. I'm just curious if it's already. I'm not sure if it's already available for us. Now here we have the Copilot environment. No, it's not there. Okay, maybe I can show you at a later stage what Copilot Lab looks like. I just have to get the right info out of that here. But so the idea behind Copilot Lab is that this is for users some guidance on how to communicate with Copilot. If you want to exit Copilot, if you want to access the Copilot Labs, you will have to go into one of your Office clients, press the Copilot button, and then you will get the option to hit the button for Copilot Labs. And that will then take you to a sort of an interactive environment that will show the user what kind of questions you can ask, and what kind of things you can add here. Okay. Sorry. The address for my website was moap.ms. I just saw the question come in. moap.ms. is the website you want to be checking out there. So Copilot Labs is user guidance. Now, all these components. So if we check out the different components so far in this solution here, then one of the things that we can see is that the language we use is pretty much allowing us to communicate with a component that is the large language model. A large language model, or LLM, is the model that will turn your queries into text, or so if you enter a question in natural language, the large language model is going to predict what part of your query is interesting information that we need to search for. What kind of solutions, what kind of information are we gathering? What kind of information are we going to process here? So that is where we are going to go and work with. Then if we move forward into the architecture here, then the next part in the Copilot stack is the next part is the orchestration part. So here I'm gonna create some space. Orchestration. Let's just make sure that we can write it down nicely. Orchestration part. And in here we see different components. For example, one of those components is a prompt and response filtering. Now, this is the component that I mentioned, where, for example, Microsoft 365 Copilot is sort of, filtering what kind of responses you will get based on, language and being, sort of nice to the end user. In ChatGPT, where I was able to get a response as Michael Scott or get a response as Donald Trump, then that filtering is different, not as strict, so to speak. So that is an important component. Then also one important component that is part of the orchestration part is the grounding component. The grounding component is basically going to sort of take the data that we get back from the index, from the actual content that has been indexed, and that is going to be made and built into a piece of text that makes sense to a person, right? It's going to make sure that we are going to make a little story about that. We provide the information into that large language model. So what we see is we can see data coming in and out of these components, especially from the user's perspective. And here, and this backend component is then, going to work with the data that we get from the index and the actual content that we get from the Microsoft Graph in order to make sure that the users will be getting the right information. One of the important components here, one of the important things in that we also want to mention is that everything here, and I'm going to put that in here. So everything that we see here in this picture is data that is part of the customer, the customer's tenant, right? In Microsoft 365 or in Azure, you when you are becoming a customer in Azure, you create a tenant, and that tenant is your organizational data. And one of the things that Microsoft wants to express very, very, very thoroughly is that they say, hey, the data used is owned by the customer, right? So owned by the customer. And that means that, for example, no one else but the customer can work with the data. Now you can imagine that for organizational data, that makes sense because your documents are not supposed to be read by someone outside of your organization. That makes perfect sense. However, also let's say the machine learning components, the machine learning, or let's just write it down, the machine learning part will also be owned by the customer and it's not going to be shared. So for example, if your data set gets more intelligent because of the use of Copilot over time, because machine learning is a continuous process that will, hopefully make the system smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter, then that machine learning part will only be allowed for your organization only. So that means that if your organization uses Copilot a lot, and for that, the Copilot indexing components and the machine learning algorithms being updated, they will only be updated for your organization. So basically what we mean with that is that we are not going to train the large language model for other organizations. When you work with your own data, with your own users, doing their own prompts in Copilot, that data and the results and how smart the system gets will not be shared with anyone else, not with Microsoft, not other organizations, nothing. It makes a lot of sense, by the way, for Microsoft not to share information because the power of a solution like Microsoft 365 Copilot heavily relies on the data and the use of that data for every single customer at a time. So for example, if you work in a hospital and the data is, and we have all kinds of healthcare related data in our tenant, and we are asking healthcare related questions to Copilot about the healthcare related data that we have in our tenant, and it makes a lot of sense that your Copilot system, your model is being trained for that, and it will become smarter and smarter and smarter in that industry. But if you're an organization in a financial sector, if you're in the financial industry, then, healthcare related prompting and healthcare related results are not very useful to you. Therefore, your financial data, your financial based prompts are being different. They give different results. So they have to be separated. It makes a lot of sense that they are separated. But Microsoft also wants to make sure that Microsoft, promises you, Microsoft promises you that they will not use Copilot data for other persons or other people or other organizations to benefit than you. Your data is your data, and it will remain your data. It's your data is your data. That is pretty much Microsoft's focus on that. Now, what we have seen is what we did see is one example of how Copilot could be used in Outlook or in Teams or in Microsoft Loop. I also wanted to show you another couple of examples on that. So what I'll be showing you is another set of clients here, and then after that, we will be going through the steps that we can take in order to prepare our organization for implementing Copilot. So one of the things we can do is we can make sure that we are getting ready for the use of that. So in this short demo, I'll be showing you what Copilot looks like in Whiteboard, Microsoft Whiteboard app, in Word, in PowerPoint, and in Excel. We'll start with whiteboard. What I want to do is whiteboard is something that we can enter. We can open up whiteboard from for example Microsoft Teams. So we might be in a Teams meeting, and in that Teams meeting we are going to do some marketing brainstorming. And here at the left hand side we can see that in this organization also a Copilot has been created or has been enabled. So we have a little Copilot logo here. And then we can go and say, hey, you know what? I want Copilot to suggest something for me. Now, the cool part is it's going to suggest things, and I just have to ask Copilot, what are we doing here? So in this example, we are suggesting inexpensive ways to promote my product without using social media. That is something that I could enter here, and then we can just go and query that. Copilot will then create a whiteboard environment that already comes with a couple of, suggestions. Before I move forward, Thor Andre is asking an interesting question, and that is, what about business to business or business to consumer relationship? Will Copilot walk over the border in these situations? The grasp permissions are already in place. Yes, but no. So indeed, users may have access to other tenants' data sets. Copilot at this point, it may change in the future, but at this point, Copilot is focusing on your own organization only at this point. May change somewhere, but yeah, that is something that we just have to be waiting for. So here, what I can do is so what we have been asking Copilot for some input on a brainstorming meeting. Maybe we can say, hey, get me some more. And if I am happy with whatever it came up with, I can go and say, hey, let's import this now. And here we can now see that we are using these little sticky notes to go in and start brainstorming here. So maybe we want to do something on prioritizing keywords here, and we can then choose to maybe suggest some more information for that part of the brainstorming session. And if I am happy with what it came up with, again, I can just go and click insert. And what I'm doing now is I am having Copilot ask me, or I've Copilot help me out on the on the part where we can go in and make sure that the Copilot environment is we never have to worry about for example a writer's block, right? If you have a writer's block, Copilot can sort of start pushing things. Another option in this case is in Word. This is, by the way, the online version of Word, where we have an option to draft with Copilot. And what we can do is we can, for example, use different files that we have in our organization. And then based on a document, we can create a text in Word. In this case, this is going to be a project proposal that we have people that we are going to create. If I'm happy with what it created, we can just keep the content, and that would be an option. We can then we can scroll a little bit through the document here if we want to, just to go in and this is something we can do here. Another option is that if we have copied text for someone else, we can just paste it in document. So we are always ourselves. We are always we are always the owner of whatever is going on, right? We are always the owner to build the solutions, to build the content here. So we may want to just add some extra stuff in here. Maybe you want to go in and well, get some more inspiration on what is going to be added into my proposal. Obviously, I want to make some changes. Maybe always you want to make sure that that everything is correct again. But at least we with this allows us to quickly and go and well create documents. It saves you a lot of time. Also with Copilot, for example, we can go and for example transform a file into a PowerPoint. In this case, we could go and say, hey, transform a document, in this case a Word document, into a PowerPoint. That is one of the things that that will really speed up your presentation creation. So here we get like an example on how that is being done. Or another example is, for example, in Excel. So if you wanna, what you could do is you can go in and start asking questions about. In this case, I can make changes to a document. So here we have an instruction that says, do not show decimal points for the sales amounts. So here we can then, it will then monitor, right, what we are talking about. And it will then remove these decimal points from the document here. And everything looks a little bit different now. Also, we can add some other things like, hey, mark in yellow any gross sales over 500K, and it will then just do that for you. This is actually quite cool because instead of having to, well, work in Excel and select things or do conditional formatting, right? That is in some cases quite difficult for people to do so. Now we can make that happen based on commands, and it will show, if you want to, nice graphics on what we have been doing. And if you like the results, you can add those insights into a new sheet. It will then create a new sheet in PowerPoint or in Excel where it will put in all of your nicer all of these nicer components in Excel, PowerPoint, and Word. So there is a couple of these click-through demos that you might like. Now, obviously, the next part is to, in some way, well, get ready for your Copilot, environment, right? So one of the things that we can say about the part where we want Copilot to be enabled for our organization is that if you want to sort of prepare this entire environment, then, well, there is a couple of steps that we can take. So what we're going to do is prepare our tenant. We're going to prepare our tenant for Copilot, for in this case, obviously, Microsoft 365 Copilot, right? That is what we're going to prepare for. And one of the first steps is that we want to make sure that, well, security is in place. So if we think about security, then there is a couple of steps that we want to take. Now, obviously, you want to be making sure that users can only access data that they are supposed to access, right? So, so you want to set up your access control nicely. And when we think about access control in Microsoft 365, there's a couple of things that we can do. First of all, you want to make sure that your user objects, well, are only part of the, well, the right groups. Now, and this is very often something that that organizations are not doing all right. For for example, if you have been working at an organization for a longer time, then one of the things that you probably have done over time is you have changed a role within the organization, and that means that you may have been part of different groups of people inside the organization. And what very often happens if you get a new role, you will be added to new groups, but you will not be removed from your older groups. And with that, you may accidentally, as an user, have access to, well, to too much information. So if possible, you really want to clean that stuff up. In one of the things that I like in in Microsoft 365, but you do have something nice if you have Microsoft 365 E5 or Azure Active Directory Plan 2 or Entra ID Plan 2. Group memberships could be very good managed via entitlement management. Entitlement management, basically what it does. Now, when we do group memberships, so when we think about managing group memberships, we are going to talk about what we want to implement is something called just enough access. But if we implement entitlement management, we are pretty much adding to the just enough access. We are just going to add the also just in time access. However, entitlement management is a Entra ID Plan 2 solution. The cool part is that if you, for example, are part of a group, then we can do this. We can do the just-in-time access. We can expire, for example, group memberships after hours or days or months or years, if you wish. But that at least is going to make sure that, well, the security, let's say the access that we have to our resources is always being protected. Another way to set this up is by implementing a couple of compliance components. So you want to make sure that your group memberships are all right, right? If you're a member of a group, you may have access to resources in SharePoint or in Teams or in, right? Based on that, that makes that allows access. You have to set this up right. You don't. It's not that you have to do this specifically for Copilot, by the way. However, Copilot and the semantic indexing is such a powerful component that that because of that indexing, you may not be aware of access that you have to something that you shouldn't, but because of the indexing part, you may, well, sort of get to know that information. I see a question coming in by Tour, and Tour Andre says, so if you update permissions, how fast is the index going to, how fast is that index going to be updated? The index is a constant process, so it's being constantly updated. It may, however, be that if you add extra permissions for a person, that it takes a little while before those results are also being shown in Copilot as a result. Now, I think that Microsoft, at this point, because we are very early in the Copilot stages, they sort of they have set up an SLA on 24 hours, which feels like a long time. But if you have a very large organization with a lot of data, it's not too weird actually that it's 24 hours. But yeah, it's something that Microsoft may in the end go and change a little bit at the end. Another thing that we can do in order to sort of speed up the process is that is actually related to compliance, and and the idea is in compliance. We have something in Azure, which is called, well, officially it's called Microsoft Purview. And in Microsoft Purview, you can set up something called information protection, or Microsoft information protection. And the idea of information protection is that we can, basically what it does, it performs a data classification. And based on your data classification, you can then you can label your documents. So you can set up some document labeling, and as part of the labeling, so we can do document labels, and as part of the labeling, we can encrypt the content of a document, and we can manage the access for that document. This is actually quite a powerful solution because you can allow access to documents based on group membership. So if, for example, a user is being removed from a group, then immediately that user will no longer be able to access the content of a document. Now, it may still, in that case, maybe your semantic index has yet to be updated for, well, that we cannot take that data into account anymore. But if we do not have access to the data, then at least trying to access that content will no longer work for that document. So this is one of the steps that you really want to be taking into account as well. Now, I do understand that if you're interested in this specific part here, for many organizations, setting up Microsoft Purview and information protection, it's going to be a lengthy process to get it done. And the reason for that is that the reason for this is that users probably will find this very difficult to work with. So the adoption time for users is going to be quite a long time. Therefore, this is something this is a lot, by the way. If you like more information on this specific part, then there is a course that you might like to attend. That course is the official name is the SC400 course. Could be a very, very useful component, could be a very, very useful part of Copilot as well, because you want to be careful allowing data into that Copilot index, in the semantic index, because well, too much access means that you will have too much information, and it's like I mentioned earlier, you don't have to. Well, you really don't have to do this security-related solution specifically for Copilot. It's just that, well, Copilot makes a lot of use of this, right? The Copilot there's a lot of use for this in Copilot. Therefore, yeah, it's an important part. I can show you a little bit on that if you have enough time for that. There is also a couple of prerequisites. So if you want to, let's say the prereqs. So if you want to be implementing Copilot, there is a couple of things that we need, right? Yeah, there's a couple of prerequisites, and let me just first go by saying that any user that wants to be using Copilot, it must use an Entra ID account. which means the user must sign in into Azure Active Directory to access resources. That is an important one. In this case, for now, when it comes to the licenses, uh, per user, we must have a Microsoft 365 license, and this could be either an E3, an E5 license. And that is current. Later, that also will allow A3, A5, and F3 licenses. And for small businesses, you must have Microsoft 365 Business Premium, and also Business Standard is going to be supporting Copilot. At this point, unfortunately, still, an organization is only allowed to start working with Copilot if you have at least 300 E3 or E5 licenses. Another requirement is that we will, we have Word and Excel and PowerPoint. At this point, the web versions of client apps will work now. That is at this point the requirement or the prereq. Let's say the full clients. Let's say the desktop or the mobile versions will support Copilot. Will support Copilot later. Dus at a later stage. At this point, it's mostly for the web versions. Outlook, however, is different. But for Outlook, we need needs the new version. Let's say the new Outlook, which is something that a user can enable. Also, when it comes to Teams, Teams just works. So Teams will say both the web version and let's say the mobile or desktop client will work. So that's for Teams, that's a good thing. However, if you have, and maybe some of you have, a Teams Premium will offers extras, will offer extra options for Copilot. They have Teams Premium has special ways of presenting data summarization from meetings and so on. So it's Teams Premium comes with some extra special options. When it comes to Loop, the only thing is that you will have to enable Loop in your tenant. In the tenant, if you have users with a Microsoft Copilot Access license, they will then be able to make use of it. And if you think about let's say cross app experiences, cross application experience, this typically depends on the data that is indexed. Typically, if everything is indexed, you will basically go and be able to see, hey, in PowerPoint, I can connect to a document and make a PowerPoint of it, and that the cross application experience is what, when it comes to that, quite a nice part there. Yes. Then there is also, let's say, something about the licensing. Now, like I mentioned, users must have sort of a license at this point. It must be E3 or E5. But then, for every user, there is an additional, there is an additional license for Microsoft 365 Copilot. And that license is I only know the US dollar price. That is $30 per user per month. Now, many people when I talk about Microsoft 365 and when I talk about Copilot, they say, "Hey, but $30, that's quite a lot of money for Copilot, right? It's quite a bit of that's quite a bit of money per user, right? So that's a lot of people, a lot of money. To that, and maybe you work at a Microsoft partner and you want to sell Copilot to your customers, or maybe you need to sell Copilot internally. So maybe some kind of a business decision making unit, like your manager, needs to allow or disallow the purchase of Copilot. Then what I could say is that I think that Copilot is actually very cheap, because on average you can say, especially most of you guys are in Norway, especially in Norway, but also in many other countries, the average cost of an employee per hour is around $30, right? So it's your salary, and then there's also some extra things that you have to pay for your customers, like maybe a car or a computer or a telephone subscription, or some insurances, pension, many costs altogether. Will easily have one employee cost more than $30 per hour. Now, if you can use Copilot and make this user working more efficiently for only 1 hour per month, so if a user will only be 1 hour more efficient per month, but believe me, you're going to be way more than that, way more efficient than that because of Copilot, you already get your money back, right? So Copilot is actually very cheap, because hey, typically you would be working on a proposal and it would take you like 2 hours. Maybe now you can do it in 5 minutes. Hey, you already earned your money back, and that's only one proposal, and you will probably be making many if you're a salesperson in an organization. So selling Copilot should be very easy. Although there is cost involved, there is more to it. Speaking of licenses, I think it was Tor Andre. He actually shared in the chat a link that I would like to show you, because that link is actually pointing to one of my favorite one of my favorite websites when it comes to licensing and Microsoft 365. The website is called m365maps.com. I do think I have a link to that in my learning page here. Yeah, here, one of the third link in my the third link here, just underneath the acronyms m365maps.com. This shows a complete feature matrix per license that Microsoft offers. And like this, you can search for a feature. Now, I do not know yet if Copilot is mentioned here. Copilot, yeah, we have security Copilot, but yeah, we don't know yet, right? It's so the website needs to be here. Microsoft 365 Copilot is something that you can add on Microsoft 365 Business Standard, or Business Standard and Premium, E3 and E5. It will become available at A3 and A5 too. I'm pretty sure, because I heard about that. So that is something that you want to be checking out as well. So that's the prerequisites. And then, if you have taken the time to secure your tenant, if you have set up, for example, document classification and labeling in Microsoft Purview, if you have been using, if you have all the prerequisites here, then it is time to basically go through the Copilot setup. There is a Copilot setup, and there is a way to do this by going to, well, there is a link for that. Now, if you go and you want to enable Copilot for your organization, let me just go and quickly get rid of a lot of tabs here. So let's just clean this up. And then you want to be in the admin.microsoft.com page here. Now, if you want to go, if you go to setup here in the setup area, dus in admin.microsoft.com, you can go into setup. Maybe, you know what, let's just zoom in a little bit here. Then here in setup, we do have a couple of guides that we can use to enable features within Microsoft 365. And here we, if we go through these different things, then we may want to go and check out what the availabilities are for Copilot. And as you can see here, not this one, if you check this, you will see that in my environment, it doesn't really say anything related to Copilot. However, there is a link. Again, I want you to, you can connect to the MOAB website. And if you go into learning and then into Copilot section here, right? So in my MOAB website, learning Copilot, here we do have a link that says enable users for Microsoft 365 Copilot here. And if I press this link, it will open up the admin.microsoft.com portal, and it will take a certain document here that will take you to the setup guide that in my tenant was not yet enabled, but for you, and that probably is the reason, because the reason for that is that I do not have enough licenses for this. However, this at least, well, so the link is there. I can open it up for my tenant. It's just something that that was sort of hidden for me still. But this is what it would look like. And in this document, maybe just zoom in a little bit more. In this document, you can see, well, the minimum requirements, and then this will take you through a readiness guide. So this will go and say, hey, you know what kind of apps do you use? What kind of updates have you been installing? What kind of privacy settings did you want to do? And then what you can also go is and open up some extra documents on how to step by step go through different settings in the end that that will optimize or will, well, ready your environment for Copilot. What do we do with Entra ID? What about OneDrive? Sharing options. What about Outlook? We need the new Outlook for Windows and for macOS, by the way. What about Microsoft Teams here? Microsoft Loop as well. And then the semantic index. And here, the semantic index, through enhanced interactions with individual and company data via the graph and the creation of a new index, it will do all that work for you. Now, the Copilot index, right? The semantic index, we can see some documentation on it, right? So we can see the documentation about this, but the index is basically always created. So semantic index at this point, it will change, is exclusively available for enterprise E3 and E5 licenses. We don't need to enable that, because it will be enabled for you as soon as you start assigning Copilot licenses for your users. So pretty much this is what we have at this point. And then, well, one of the next step is that we need to go in and say, hey, we want to add our Copilot licenses. You will have to purchase those licenses first, and unfortunately, well, we do need at least 300 Microsoft 365 E3 or E5 licenses today. Plus, we always have to purchase Copilot licenses with a minimum of also 300 licenses. So without, so if you want to get started with Copilot, that is going to be a $9,000 per month agreement that you are going to work with at Microsoft. That is the minimum. But like we mentioned, that is the minimum today, because there will be more being used. There will be more options for the smaller organizations using Copilot. Once you have been enabling Copilot, once you enabled Copilot, you will then get a Copilot management option as well. In my case, you will see that in my environment, we can see some default things, some default settings here. But what you will see at a later stage, once Copilot has been enabled for your organization, you will then be once it's enabled for your organization, you will then get extra options here. And I think it was under settings here. Yeah, here, right above or right under your organizational settings, you will then get a Microsoft Copilot component. And that is, that Copilot component that will then allow you to set some settings. I was actually hoping to quickly see if I can show you what that looks like. But I am looking for the right picture. Yeah, there is one of the things that we do. Yeah, very well. No, I'm looking for it. Yes, and why is it hidden? Too bad. I was actually hoping to show you the options that we have, but for some reason not here. No, what you will get here is an extra. You will get an extra option here, and there's not a lot of things to manage. By the way, it's not that you can influence the index. It's not that you can basically the one of the few settings that you can do is, do I want Copilot to also check the internet or not? I think that settings, by the way, also is something you can get from the that is something you can get from the configurations here on. I'm not sure if it's shown here in this case. This is just the Bing chat. This Bing chat enterprise integration. That was not what I was looking for. No, it's not. We have, well, unfortunately, we do have to have that extra option, of course, but that will allow us to show whether or not we can use the internet as part of Copilot. But that's it. Also, some other components are here as well. This drawing, if you would like a copy of this, then what you can do is do the following. Let me just go in and get it shared. I'm going to put it on my OneDrive 2312. Let's say this is Copilot. Here we are. And then I'm going to name this picture 101 Copilot also .png. So if you want a copy of this picture, again, you would need to be at the wrong button. That's not cool. Let me try and get this back again here. Whoop, here we go. So let's go to what you need to do is you go to the MOAB website here. Then you want to go to the My Course Today section. Now, here in the My Course Today section, there is a little link to whiteboards. If you click whiteboards here, you will open up this is my OneDrive. And then within there, you can go into the folder called 2023. Then scroll all the way down and search for 2312 Copilot. And here you will be able to download the Copilot page, Copilot picture. And that, my dear friends, brings us to the end of today's session. Hopefully you found this informative. If you would like to stay in touch, I was not able to answer all the questions that I've seen in the Q&A section. So again, if you want to stay in touch, then please invite me to connect via LinkedIn. Just connect. You don't have to follow me, but you can connect. I will accept everybody. And if you want to see more of the presentations that I do, then please check out my YouTube channel. And don't forget to subscribe, because that will get you updates on stuff. For now, I want to thank you for joining. I want to thank you for your time. It has been 2 of your hours, times a few hundred people. So that's a lot of hours. So thank you for joining. If you want to see it again, today at 1 o'clock, we will be running the webinar again, but it will be pretty much the same thing. Yes, so with that, thank you very much for joining, and hopefully we will meet each other in maybe at Glass Paper once. So see you around. Tusen tak, varsågod, god öl, dörrene lykkes. And that's all of my Norwegian. So that's... Oh, and a Merry Christmas. Yes, that's a good one. Merry Christmas. Yay. All right. Hey, goodbye. I'm going to end the session very, very soon.